I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with the cattle market summary for the week ending September the 27th, brought to you in part by the National Beef Wire. And today we are spotlighting channel 6000, which is Joplin Regional Stockyards channel. Joplin Regional Stockyards, your biggest sale there in that part of the country, right in the four-state area, and no amount of cattle scares them. Got a lot of buying power in there. They've got the primetime video, and they've really got it rolling if you choose to sell your cattle that way. But every Monday morning, starting early, because they like to get done in good time. And then on Wednesdays, they have a big cow and bull sale, and usually always have a lot of replacements included in that too. But on the road here already, en route to the big rally to stop the stealing in Omaha and save the cowboy, and going to make a few stops along the way. But I hope that as many of you can come as you can. It's Wednesday, October the 2nd. You don't need anything special to come. I think they did ask to RSVP if you wanted the lunch that they had prepared there. But we're going to have a good time there. We're trying to brainstorm and come up with ways to make this stick. I mean, I know we're going to hoorah and we're going to have a big rally and we're going to preach to the choir and we want this to stick. So we're trying to get as much media as we can, for one thing, in there to help us out with carrying this on, but also trying to maybe get some folks to kind of stick together, kind of lay some groundwork for some more ways to work together to try to resist this vertical integration that's going on in the industry, and try to get a little of that margin back from the packer. But we sure don't want to put them out of business. But you know, whenever they're making 500 and your average feeder's losing 1 to 200, that's not really a fair assessment of the way the beef business ought to be. But we're going to have a good rally there. We hope as many of you can come as you can. It starts at 9:30, going to run till about 4, and it should be a very interesting event. But let's look at the board for last week. Your live cattle futures, October. Monday was up 250. Tuesday was up 27 cents. Wednesday was up 87. Thursday off just a nickel, and Friday up $2.07, with October live cattle ending the week at 105.02, up $5.67 for the week. The gains were easy all week long. In the cash, in the futures, everything was just kind of coming to your cattle guys very easily. I mean, we've seen weeks where they would just fight tooth and nail to give up anything, whether it be on the board, on the cash, on feeders, on fats, whatever it was. The gains just came easy. But your December live cattle ended the week at 110.57, up $5.42. All of your commodity people tell you, and your analysts, your technical analysts will all tell you that the board is overbought. So meaning that it's higher than it ought to be. And still just huge gains. Look at your feeder cattle contracts for October. Monday was up $2.05. Tuesday was up 40. Wednesday was up 80. Thursday up 65, and Friday up $1.22. Up. And so ending the week with October feeder cattle at 144.32, up $4.72 for the week. Your September went off the board at 141.77. We look out the next month as November is sitting just under 143. But like I say, the gains just came so easy on the board. I can't help but think that all of this coming together, the Twitter campaign that we had all last week, the big rally coming up, these outside people and the people in Chicago are paying attention too. They got social media. They're paying attention. They're seeing that your producers are starting a kind of a grassroots drive here to try to get something positive going and start working together instead of just working at home all the time and letting these things happen away from them. They want to get involved in it. They want to see why they're going broke when they're working day and night. And I think it's bleeding over. I tell you, there's nothing else there. Yeah, we had a very bullish cattle and feed report, especially with placements at only 91%, but a lot of that placement was really due to the fear in the industry for sellers in the latter part of August because of everything that happened after the Holcomb fire. So that's one reason the placements were that low. And we knew that coming in, but it was even lower than what we thought. But yeah, but a lot of times, even on a big bullish cattle on feed report, it usually plays out after a Monday. But we just kept coming back day after day after day. Your packers came in bidding more on fat cattle early in the week. They haven't been buying hardly anything negotiated. So you know, there's a lot of cattle out there for sale. Fat cattle. There's a lot of market-ready cattle in the Southern Plains, especially, that's ready. You know, people were even talking about another wall of cattle out there. There's a lot of cattle that got a lot of days on them in the Southern Plains, and you would think that your packers would be tougher, but they've just kind of softened up the last couple of weeks here, and they come in earlier in the week to midweek, bidding higher on cattle, getting a few cattle bought, but guys were resisting a little bit. I don't know that they were really being that hard to trade with. They just weren't going to take that early in the week because they had so much support for the board. But then we come in late in the week and they just start handing dollars out. You know, we've seen weeks where they would just fight tooth and nail to keep from giving $1 up and maybe not even trade for a whole week, and most of the next week just wouldn't give up another buck. This week they were just throwing them out hand over fist. Through Thursday, they'd sold 38,800 head in a 5-area feeding region. Negotiated live prices ranged from 102 all the way to 105, so most all of it was higher. Just through Thursday, with that 102 to 105 trade, here, there, yonder, we had a weighted average on live steers at 103.46. That was up $2.18 compared to the weighted average from the previous week. Your dress sales ranged from 162 to 167, with a weighted average on dress steers at 165.27, up $2.80. And you think, my gosh, that was pretty good. Then we had Friday. It was even better. Southern Plains start selling cattle at 103. We heard maybe some 104 in a few spots in maybe Kansas. The Northern Plains got a live price of 106. Out west, they were getting some 107. We don't have all the results in because a lot of it happened after we get our last report for mandatory reporting, but it just kept coming. And so not most of the dress trade had probably taken place before Friday, or so a little cleanup Friday morning, but Friday afternoon they just kept handing out the dollars, and they just more and more and more. I heard reports of some yards in Kansas, you know, kind of on that boundary, maybe around I-70, which I consider to be the separation of the Northern Plains and the Southern Plains. But we saw some yards in there, negotiated yards, where packers come in, bought the show list at 103, good cattle, bought them, and they were okay with that. That was the market. They bought them, and then come back in the afternoon, or called them, and bought the junk that they passed over off the show list, or some stuff they might thought was green, or some just maybe some Mexican cattle, this and that, whatever, at 105, after they'd bought the bulk of the good cattle that morning at 103 at the same place. That's the kind of day it was on Friday, and most of your cattle sellers just couldn't believe that it was coming to them this easy. And I think for the lack of anything else to really look at, yeah, we did announce that the Japan deal is rolling, and they're going to start buying a lot more ag products, especially beef, and that's going to be great. But we kind of knew that was coming. There's nothing standing out other than support from the board, and I think that's coming from the same place, is coming from just seeing how the producers are coming together, and they're putting their foot down, and they've had enough. And they said, you know, like a buddy of mine told me, he said, it's like a twisted sister. We're not going to take it anymore. And I don't know if I'm going to have to lead that at the rally, but I do karaoke from time to time. So if we get somebody in there with a really good drum beat and never mind. But look at your box beef, and it was a rough week for the packers. Here they're giving money up just like crazy, buying cattle. And then they're going to have to pay that on all these formula cattle this week now, guys, because that's most of them are based off of what the market was last week. Well, the market was gaining. We don't even have the reports out Monday morning when the report's out to see what those weighted averages are going to be that they're going to have to buy cattle off of this week or pay for them. But then they're losing ground like crazy in the box beef, and I think some of your beef purchasers are maybe rubbing their nose in it a little bit because they kind of got it back down to where it was before the fire. We've got our fat market back to where it was before the fire. But look at these choice cuts. Your average trade for last week, $214.51, down $4.24 compared to the weighted average from the previous week. Selects $190.12, down $3.15. We've still got this huge choice select spread, which normally this time of year would be narrowing, but still it's $24.39 on the average trade. We did have good movement, so we hadn't seen that for a couple of weeks as your beef purchasers were backing off because they felt like they'd gotten raped, after the fire, and they did. But it all had to do with the price fixing and the gouging and everything that went on. But they did come back in and they needed to buy some product in about 648 loads, which is pretty good movement of cuts, grinds, and trimmings. Your slaughter, 648,000 for the week, 10,000 off the giant week they had the week before, exactly the same as a year ago. We're getting all this done without that extra plant. Maybe we could just get that thing up and running just in case we need it. And just keep it there on standby because we're getting rid of these cattle plenty well, and we're getting into the time where your cattle people are going to get the supplies back on their side because we're slaughtering these heifers like crazy, have been all year and by leaps and bounds over last year, and it was big compared to the year before. And so our cow slaughter has been up big. Where guys are getting, guys are being forced out. A lot of them are going broke. A lot of them couldn't stand the winter and the floods and everything. They're selling out. Going to be a lot of big dispersals coming up later this fall and into the early winter up in the northern plains there in and around Nebraska and Iowa. As guys just, they can't fight it anymore. They're getting out. A lot of those cows will end up going to kill too. We're going to start seeing how many calves they actually lost too, and then we talked about that, probably more loss by sickness and after the floods and everything, because it was rampant, more than the numbers that drowned in the floods. The sickness was really bad after. But let's talk about your feeder cattle markets. Your real-time index on Cattle Market Central ended the week at 142.11. That was up $3.23 from the end of the previous week. And you look how that RTI is right in there. Your CME is always a day or two behind there, running at 141.77. It'll be right on it, nipping at its heels all the time, but it's just a little bit behind your RTI. And if you guys that keep up with that index are not tracking the RTI, you're really missing out because it basically just runs right ahead of it all the time. But like in your auctions, your cash feeders, just like that RTI, it was 323 higher for the week on your feeder cattle, and your cattle sold from $2 to $5 higher in your sale barns, and that's the market. Calves surely that high, maybe more in spots, because we are starting to see some of the better calves. It's not necessarily that our demand is more than what the supply is. We're just starting to get those better strings of calves. More of them are being weaned, things like that. So that's really helping out your calf demand. Look at some of your individual quotes. Crawford, Nebraska sold some big steers on Friday there. 55 head, weighed 1035 at 133.75. That's pretty optimistic for the short term, so that's a good deal there. Had several other good sales. Don't forget to support the sale at Kimball, South Dakota on Tuesday, because they're having a busload of people coming down to the rally on Wednesday, so they need to have a good sale on Tuesday at their Customer Appreciation Day. You get a brisket meal there with all the trimmings, and I think they've even got cookies and snacks and everything, so fill your belly up on that. Support them and their good cattle there, and then pat them on the back as they head out for Omaha. But some other individual quotes. Burwell, Nebraska, you can't ignore Burwell. Look at the sale they had on Friday. Sold a big load, 78 head of 609-pound steers at 169. And then don't forget the half load of little Pee-wee steer calves they sold weighing 442 at 190, 150. That's a look at your markets from on the road here, headed to Omaha for the big rally. And we'll talk to you next week.